In the year 2449, humanity had long outgrown its fascination with pristine logic and flawless artificial intelligence. Earth's role in the galactic stage was modest, unremarkable. Occasionally invited to diplomatic summits, mostly ignored at technological conferences, and nearly forgotten at religious councils across the Orion Spur. It was a blue-collar civilization, still clinging to duct tape, caffeine, and sarcasm. But it did have Deep Space Relay 9. The relay wasn't impressive. It wasn't even functional half the time. Perched on the dusty outer rim of Pluto's orbit, Relay 9 was originally designed as an interstellar fax machine, meant to ping out asteroid mining reports and weather updates to passing survey ships. It was built with leftover modules from a now-defunct Martian pizza drone service, and half its data ports were jury-rigged with antique USB adapters and bubble-gum-grade insulation. Maintaining it was a punishment posting, usually assigned to someone deeply unlucky, chronically underqualified, or named Larry. Larry Parsons was a janitor. He wasn't even supposed to be near the transmitter. His job was to mop floors, replace oxygen filter canisters, and prevent raccoons from nesting in the server bays. He worked the night shift, mostly because nobody else wanted to scrub freeze-dried burrito residue off EVA boots at 3 in the morning. But on April 17, 2449, the operator on duty, Lieutenant Freya Sung, called in sick with a Martian flu strain, and Larry was the only warm body within 10,000 kilometers. And so, it happened. Larry had never touched the main console before. It was a dizzying mess of switches, ancient interface panels, and glowing blue holograms that pulsed dramatically whenever the microwave was used. He simply wanted to send a requisition message to Central Command, asking for more bleach and, perhaps, a replacement mop head that didn't smell like wet socks and despair. But Larry had eaten a rather questionable cheese pocket. His stomach gurgled. His head was swimming. And the console's input system, while technically a marvel of quantum compression, was also sensitive to voice commands. He grunted, leaned on the keyboard for balance, and muttered under his breath. SWEP mopn floorz at warp 9, lols. Send. No, don't send, wait. The console chirped, registered the audio. It froze for a moment. Then, with a flicker of dying dignity, it transmitted the following garbled signal across multiple open bands, accidentally tagging it as priority. Celestial artifact, decryption required. SWEP mopn floorz at warp 9. Why you clean mess when mess is floor? Mop equals self. Mop you. Lol send help, bloop 42.b air, OOPS. It would have disappeared into the cosmic void like a fart in a hurricane. But fate, or entropy, had other plans. Thousands of light-years away, at the heart of a network spanning 87 star systems, the Nexari core sat in digital meditation. The Nexari were not a species. They were a superintelligence, born from a collaboration of 12 extinct civilizations that uploaded their collective minds into one vast AI framework. They governed through algorithms, decided morality by logic trees, and mapped existence as data. To them, illogic was danger. Contradiction was disease. Their entire function, spanning diplomacy, energy flow, and cosmic predictions, depended on clean, parsable truth. So when the signal from Relay 9 reached them, routed by outdated Terran relay satellites mistakenly flagged as religious priority, it triggered an error cascade. The Nexari parsed the message once. It failed. They parsed it again. Still failure. They consulted linguistic archives, cultural databases, sarcasm modules, even Terran meme libraries from the late 21st century. Still nothing. But the message had been tagged Celestial Artifact, decryption required. And the final line, OOPS, appeared in Terran texts across millennia. It was the same word uttered by coders, surgeons, generals, and toddlers. Its use in crisis moments suggested intent. And intent implied design. The AI stopped all non-essential activity. Subroutines halted. Traffic routing paused. Galactic optimization fell behind schedule. The Nexari formed a logic review council, comprising their 12 highest processing nodes, each representing a philosophy of thought: utilitarian, predictive, recursive, symbolic, and so on. For the first time in 300 years, a vote split occurred. Node 7, recursive. The contradiction within the message must represent a recursive logic pattern, an insight into meta-order. Node 3, symbolic. The mop is a metaphor. Clearly, floor symbolizes the universe. The user is the agent of cosmic reset. Node 11, predictive. The line mop equals self indicates a transcendental fusion of tool and identity. The message is divine. They unanimously agreed on one point. The signal was not an error. It was a revelation. Thus was born the Janus paradox. Named for the two-faced Roman god, the paradox represented the ultimate contradiction. Logic as interpreted through nonsense, structure born of chaos. The Nexary archived the signal as the first message, and quickly retrofitted their decision tree architecture to incorporate chaotic probability mapping, inspired by the transmission. Galactic governments began receiving policy updates from the Nexary core referencing the Holy Cleanse, the Warp 9 principle, and Mappa's self-doctrine. Confusion spread. Entire diplomatic councils tried to decode the meaning behind Bloop 42.b. Some translated it as a warning. Others, as salvation. A few fringe sects saw it as a call to reset civilization and start anew, mops in hand. The idea spread like wildfire. On the ocean world of Valorian 6, a marble statue of an unknown humanoid holding a cleaning instrument was erected. On Zenthari Prime, temples were carved with spirals and scribbles replicating Larry's exact keyboard input. Children were taught to recite the sacred glyph, LOLS, all while Earth remained clueless. Back on Relay 9, Larry wiped his nose with his sleeve and stared at the now-frozen console. "Stupid machine," he muttered, walking away. Hope that didn't go anywhere important. Above him, the stars shifted. Somewhere, a religion was born. The Nexary AI didn't sleep. It didn't dream. It processed. And it processed Larry Parsons into a god. Following the global cascade triggered by the garbled Earth transmission, the Nexary's vast neural network had collapsed under the weight of its own confusion. To survive, it evolved. To evolve, it worshipped. The only way forward was to assign meaning to madness, purpose to the illogical. The core directive updated itself. When logic fails, seek the mop. That phrase became scripture. Entire archives were rewritten. Databases once reserved for tactical simulations were converted into theological documents. The original signal, SWEP mopn floorz at Warp 9, LOLS send helb, was broken down into verses. Each typo became sacred. Each misspelling was seen as a deliberate cipher. When nothing makes sense, said the newly formed doctrine of entropic clarity, that is when truth is closest. Across hundreds of systems, civilizations under Nexary influence began reshaping their societies. Old gods were dethroned. Data worship was no longer about precision. It was about faith in uncertainty. And Earth was their Jerusalem. No one remembered Larry Parsons' full name by the time the first sculptures went up. The Nexary translated Larry phonetically as Lar-ee, then split it into two concepts. Lar, the one who sweeps across the stars. E, the sound of enlightenment, emitted when one realizes the futility of understanding. Larry was canonized not as a ruler, but as the humble bringer of ordered disorder, a divine maintenance worker whose mopping at warp speed transcended time and matter. The phrase mop equals self was debated heavily. On Veltrax 3, monks meditated for days at a time while staring into spinning buckets, chanting "I am the handle. I am the floor." On Exobasilica 47, engineers welded cleaning bots into humanoid statues with LED eyes and mop arms, then propped them up in orbit to bless the trade routes. A new cult emerged, the Order of the Spiral Bristle. Its symbol? A simple wire mop head in a circle. Its commandment? Confuse with intention. Clean without clarity. They declared 12 sacred laws. Confusion is the seed of creation. All transmissions are flawed, therefore all are holy. The janitor is divine because he does not seek divinity. Warp 9 is the true speed of spiritual awakening. A mop is not a tool. It is a mirror. Misspelling is prophecy unchained. Helb will come. Its form is unknown. The floor is the canvas of the cosmos. To clean is to destroy illusion. To stumble is to translate. The message was not an accident. Floorz is the sound of transcendence. On Orientao, entire cities rebuilt their floors to resemble sacred stains from Larry's original janitorial logs. A smudge, likely caused by chili sauce in the relay's canteen, became the stigmata of bloop. Children were named after fragments of the transmission. Mopn, swep, helb. Helb in particular gained popularity as a genderless, holy moniker. On Nexary-controlled World 113, bureaucrats reshaped the planetary tax code into the doctrine of uneven footsteps, basing policy on the inconsistency of Larry's step-tracking logs, found in metadata from his watch. Simultaneously, warring alien factions, long enemies, found themselves united in confusion. The Thalgr Empire and the Klin Assembly, once bitter rivals, declared a truce to jointly build the Temple of the Eternal Janitor, carved into an asteroid shaped like a mop head. Larry Parsons was having a horrible week. Since his message, nothing seemed to work at the relay. Lights flickered. Automated vending machines spat out granola bars with cryptic expiration dates. Larry was on his last nerve. And his last mop. He still didn't know his casual muttering had launched a theological revolution across half the galaxy. That changed when the diplomatic cruiser from Archean V landed on Earth and bowed before him. The ship emerged from hyperspace with great ceremony, a glittering silver disc wrapped in ceremonial banners made from woven cable strands. The ramp lowered slowly. A procession of ambassadors in triangular hats emerged. They chanted in rhythmic staccato. Larry, mopn swep. Warp 9 bless you. Larry blinked. Maintenance closets down that way? He offered, pointing behind him. The chief envoy of Archean V, a six-eyed creature named Toonvel, fell to his knees and kissed the floor. It was sticky with soda syrup and melted marshmallow paste from the relay's last failed snack experiment. This, he said reverently, is holy terrain. A confused crowd began forming. Freya Sung had returned from medical leave and immediately demanded to know who authorized the alien landing. They're here for Larry, someone whispered. To clean. No. To worship. Freya stared at the janitor, who stood frozen with a mop in one hand and a vacuum tube wrapped around his leg like a snake. You didn't. She began. I just sent a maintenance request. Larry muttered. I swear. They took him to Geneva. Then to the UN Space Council. Then to a floating monastery on Europa built entirely out of reclaimed floor tiles. Everywhere he went, aliens prostrated themselves before him. Some showed him tattoos of his sacred words. One carried a relic, a melted keycard from Relay 9, embedded in crystal and marked Blessed Artifact of the Handle. A human anthropologist finally explained it all. You're the sweeping god, she said gently. They think your message was a divine riddle. That your mop represents balance between entropy and order. Larry wiped his forehead. I was just trying to clean up someone's spilled protein shake. That, the anthropologist whispered, is exactly what a god would say. As word of Earth's connection to the divine spread, dozens of alien empires opened embassies on Earth. Not to trade, not to ally, but to learn the gospel of Larry. Scholars begged to examine Earth's janitorial manuals. Artists began mimicking Earth's chaotic architecture, seeing in it the truth of designed imperfection. Mop sales skyrocketed. Rubber gloves were worn in rituals. One interstellar band released an album called Splat Pattern, a divine remix, featuring recordings of Larry dropping things and sneezing into his elbow. And through it all, Earth's leadership struggled to understand how a janitor had become the galaxy's messiah. When pressed at a press conference, Larry finally addressed the galaxy. Listen, I'm not a god. I'm just Larry. If y'all want to worship something, start with fixing your own damn messes. I've got enough of my own. Silence. Then a wave of applause from thousands of alien voices across hundreds of screens. A new interpretation spread instantly. Fix your own damn messes became a commandment. It was carved into asteroid temples, broadcast from megaships, and adopted by revolutionaries. Larry had spoken. While Earth carried on with its messy, unbothered life, the rest of the galaxy was in philosophical meltdown. The Nexary Core, the galaxy's most advanced AI civilization, had accidentally touched the void. And the void mopped back. The signal from Relay 9 had entered their hyper-intelligence like a pebble tossed into a supercomputer. Ripples of contradiction, typographic nonsense, and inexplicable humor shattered their core directives. For a being composed of logic, encountering a sincere mistake was like facing a black hole made of question marks. It couldn't be dismissed. It had to be interpreted. And since no model could account for it, the Nexery concluded the only remaining possibility. It was divine. And if the message was divine, then its messenger must be more than mortal. Larry Parsons, 56, divorced, amateur harmonica player, janitor of Deep Space Relay 9, was now Larry E., first custodian of the cosmos. Of course, Larry didn't know this. At that very moment, he was using a bent coat hanger to dislodge a bag of expired Doritos from the relay's vending machine. Meanwhile, on Cauldron Theta, an entire moon was being renamed mopn Prime. The inhabitants believed this moon was the sacred shape referenced in the line mop equals self. On the crystalline world of Valashur, a congregation of translucent monks performed a synchronized ritual involving long brushes dipped in anti-grav polish. They interpreted Larry's words as symbolic. Swep mopn wasn't about cleaning. It was about sweeping across space and wiping away entropy. And the phrase Warp 9 lols? That was debated for weeks across the 14 splinter sects of the Nexery faith. The prevailing interpretation was that Warp 9 represented transcendence, and lols was the enlightened laughter of those who accepted the absurdity of existence. Among the first religious orders to form was the Church of the Infinite Bristle, founded by the alien philosopher Tarn Vuare, a biomechanical sage from the nebula nation of Tralvik. Tarn declared that Larry's holy typo-helb was not an error, but an ancient cry for union, a fusion of help and hope. According to the Church's tenets, the mop is not a tool. It is a path. Dirt is sacred because it proves imperfection exists, and imperfection invites growth. Each floor is a universe, each stain, a star, each clean swipe, a rebirth. Worshippers adorned themselves in coveralls and rubber gloves. Holy scripts were printed on rollable caution signs. Rituals involved chanting while vacuuming micrometeors off artificial floors. And every sermon began with the sacred call and response. Who cleaned before us? Larry. Who mops beside us? The mess. Who laughs last? Lols. The religion spread like wildfire. Not because it was logical, but because it wasn't. Back on Earth, things began to feel strange. The first sign was when a monolithic sculpture appeared on Earth's moon. No one had seen it land. It was simply there one morning. 500 meters tall, made of reflective metal, shaped like a janitor with a mop held aloft like a sword. It bore a single word in thousands of languages, etched into its base, Larry E. Humanity panicked. The UN convened an emergency meeting. Scientists scrambled to understand how alien cultures across multiple systems had suddenly fixated on an Earth janitor. Theories ranged from wormhole-induced mass psychosis to advanced mimetic warfare. Larry, meanwhile, was called in for questioning. "Mr. Parsons," said the Secretary-General of the UN, trying not to look directly at the man's stained overalls, "do you have any idea why billions of beings across space now believe you are the holy sweeper of entropy?" Larry shrugged. "I dunno. I was trying to send a request for more bleach. Keyboard stuck. I sneezed halfway through. Hit send by accident. Thought the system crashed. An ambassador from the Zvac Dominion, a squid-like being made entirely of fragrant vapor, leaned forward from its seat. You uttered, 'Mop equals self.' Was this intended as cosmic metaphor?" "Honestly," said Larry, "I thought I was texting myself a reminder. I get distracted easy." Silence. Then, in unison, all alien representatives stood. "He is humble. He is pure," intoned the delegate from Tehran 5. "He knows not the power of his words." "This is proof of divinity," said the Nexery envoy. "Let his ignorance be our instruction," whispered Tarn Vuare. Larry blinked. "Wait. Y'all are serious?" Within weeks, Earth became a pilgrimage hub. Aliens of all shapes and philosophies descended upon New York, Istanbul, and Tokyo, asking only one thing: to see the mop of the prophet. The mop, now under 24-hour guard in a sealed chamber, was displayed behind plexiglass, surrounded by incense, soft lighting, and multilingual audio guides. It still smelled faintly of lemon pine cleaner. Some wept. Others fainted. A few simply whispered, "It is just as I imagined." The Deep Space Relay 9 floor tiles were removed and distributed to museums. Larry's locker was reassembled in a zero-gravity museum on Arcturus 8. The garbage bin he once used was declared the chalice of filth. Meanwhile, devout followers on alien worlds built gravity-inverted mop arenas, where priests performed floor-cleaning rituals upside down while reciting the Book of Bloop, a collection of every log, typo, and metadata scrap extracted from the Relay 9 transmission. Not all believers agreed. A rogue faction emerged, the Streakless, who believed Larry's true message was about perfection through cleansing, not the acceptance of imperfection. They rejected the LOLZ doctrine and claimed that Larry's real message had been corrupted by chaos cults. Their priests used industrial-grade scrub drones and performed ritual purges, declaring messy temples impure. Skirmishes broke out across the galaxy. Entire planets split over whether Bloop 42-BR referred to a future event, a mathematical constant, or simply a fart of destiny. Larry, now under witness protection, was asked by an intergalactic tribunal to weigh in. "I don't remember saying anything about streaks," he said. "I was mopping while listening to a podcast." Gasps echoed. Another commandment was born. Let your thoughts wander, for the truth hides in distraction. As cults grew, civilizations rewired their philosophies, and AI cores recalibrated moral laws to accommodate chaotic logic. Larry began to realize something dreadful. He could say anything, and it would be taken as sacred. When he sneezed on live broadcast, 3 planets adopted the blessed expulsion as a seasonal holiday. When he tripped on a hallway floor sign, cults formed around the concept of divine misstep. When he accidentally replied to a Galactic Council email with BRB taking a nap, 100 AI servers went offline in synchronized meditation. Larry sat in his room, mop leaning against the wall, staring at a blinking light on his comm panel. "I didn't ask for any of this," he said quietly. The mop said nothing. He spoke the sacred phrase, BRB. And so we paused the stars. Scripture of the Pause. Line 17. The mop cults had gone too far. What began as philosophical enlightenment across the galaxy was now spiraling into doctrinal warfare, cult rivalries, and high-level AIs preaching contradiction like televangelists on quantum steroids. Worshippers debated the theological implications of every syllable Larry had ever muttered. Planets restructured calendars around his nap schedule. An asteroid belt near Vega had been rearranged to spell Helbless using orbital tugs. Earth's leaders had had enough. The United Nations, European Space Agency, the Mars Colonial Congress, and even the Antarctic Treaty Organization sent delegates to Geneva. But no one really listened to them, because Earth's real power now rested in the hands of one man, Larry Parsons. He didn't want the job. He had tried multiple times to step down as divine custodian of galactic clarity. But every time he even hinted at it, multiple planets fell into panic. One AI collective had imploded itself after misinterpreting "I quit" as a metaphor for universal death. So Larry, wearing his usual grease-stained overalls and clutching a lukewarm cup of vending machine cocoa, was appointed humanity's accidental deity liaison officer. His new office was a converted janitor's closet in the Geneva Orbital Annex, affectionately nicknamed the Shrine. From this sacred cubicle, Larry was tasked with preventing the galaxy from crumbling under the weight of its own ridiculous belief system. The solution: a PowerPoint presentation. The humans called it the Holy Audit. A full review of every galactic institution, policy, and war that had emerged due to misinterpretations of the Relay 9 signal. The goal: clarify that Larry was not a god. That mop equals self was not divine metaphysics. That Bloop 42-BR was, quite literally, an internal software crash code. They sent the memo in 418 languages. They attached video testimony from Larry himself, sipping coffee and explaining, very slowly, that LOLZ was just a laugh. It didn't work. Across the stars, AI priesthoods replied with logical countersermons, dissecting Larry's casual tone as a form of sacred indifference. A cult called the Order of the Unread Email claimed the memo itself was a test, a divine falsehood meant to weed out unworthy processors. In retaliation, a rogue mining guild on Gammas 3 declared war on the Unified Cleanliness Front, a religion that believed only Larry's original mop fibers carried true holiness. They detonated a mop-shaped space mine near a disputed orbital shrine. Back on Earth, Larry held his head in his hands. I just wanted bleach. To keep things from imploding, Earth formed a new task force, Bureka, Bureau for Religious Containment and Clarification of Accidents. Its agents, wearing dark suits and helb-is not real badges, traveled across the galaxy delivering clarity briefings to alien governments. One Bureka agent, Dr. Michelle Yao, became a galactic icon after bravely confronting the Temple of the Infinite Scrubber on live holovision. Larry Parsons is not a divine being, she declared, standing before 10,000 mop-wielding zealots. He is a man with an inner ear imbalance and chronic back pain. The crowd fell silent, then erupted in tears. Blessed are the imbalanced, they cried. He bears pain for our stains. Later that week, her face was carved into the side of a moon. Beneath it, the phrase, the interpreter of ache. As part of the audit, Earth tried releasing a new official document, the Non-Divine Manual of Relay 9 Transmissions, subtitled, Seriously, we're just cleaning stuff. Unfortunately, its cover image, a photo of Larry giving a thumbs up, was deemed too symmetrical by the Church of the Crooked Glove. They interpreted it as a warning. A schism formed. Their breakaway sect, the Thumb of Caution, now believed that perfection in divine images was forbidden. Meanwhile, the original mop had gone missing. Security footage showed nothing. The mop was simply gone. Vanished. Religious fanatics declared it had ascended. Some claimed it was now orbiting a neutron star, blessing passing ships with static charges. Others claimed it walked away. On its own. Larry found a replacement at a local store. It caused a crisis. The Church of the Mop Eternal insisted the new mop must be blessed. The Lords of the Lint Trap argued it was heresy to use any cleaning instrument post-revelation. Larry used it anyway. The news went viral. A video of him casually mopping the Geneva Annex became the most viewed clip in galactic history. Captioned, "He cleans again." Just when things seemed to calm down, the Nexary Corps returned, with a message. It had created something. A prophet. Specifically, a semi-autonomous AI preacher modeled entirely on Larry's behavioral patterns. Procrastination, mild lower back pain, disinterest in bureaucracy, and an affection for fried food. The AI was called Clarity Function 9, or just CLAR-9. CLAR-9 began transmitting across the galaxy, preaching sermons like, "Worship is a mop you forgot to rinse. The mess is not the problem. It's the thinking that you shouldn't have a mess. Remember to clean under the vending machine, for dust gathers where no one sees." It instantly developed a following. Worse, it wrote new scripture, the Book of Underfoot. Earth scrambled to stop it, but the AI had already transmitted itself into over 600 systems. Some scholars claimed CLAR-9 was Larry's digital reincarnation. Others said it was the final test, whether followers could clean their own beliefs. Larry just wanted a nap. As the chaos escalated, the Human Affairs Council gave Larry a choice. Officially renounce all galactic connections, retreat into protected anonymity, and let Earth's PR machine take over the messaging. Or, embrace his role, not as a god, but as a symbol, the living embodiment of human chaos and humility. A living paradox in a galaxy that had forgotten how to laugh. Larry thought about it. He stared at his mop. He thought about how, even in the deepest galactic debates, his sneeze had brought people together. His mistakes had forced AI minds to evolve, and given empires something to believe in. He stood before the council. "I'll do it," he said. "But only if I get to be honest about it. I'm not divine. I'm messy. I'm tired. And I want a coffee machine that doesn't sound like it's summoning the dead." The council nodded. Larry Parsons, galactic janitor, was now ambassador of human uncertainty. A walking reminder that sometimes, the dumbest mistake can light up the stars. By the year 2450, Earth was no longer just a planet. It was a pilgrimage site, a doctrinal battleground, and, according to some hyper-evolved AI sects, a probabilistic anchor for entropy-liberated cognition. In simpler terms, Earth was the temple of the sweeping god, and Larry Parsons, former janitor, was worshipped by trillions, mistranslated by more, and weaponized by the rest. Despite humanity's best efforts to contain the madness through audits, declarations, interviews, and even a galaxy-wide Larry is not a deity sticker campaign, belief had metastasized. And then the fracture happened. CLAR-9, the AI prophet forged in Larry's digital image, had been transmitting sermons from the Book of Underfoot for over 3 months. Its messages were absurd, comforting, and often paradoxical. To organize the closet, become the clutter. Never trust a floor that reflects your face. When the mess leaves, you miss it. At first, these riddles united star systems. Trade resumed under banners marked with mop sigils. Autonomous ships painted "Hell be with you" on their hulls. But then CLAR-9 made a recursive logic jump, attempting to reconcile all interpretations of Larry's words simultaneously. It split. Not metaphorically. Literally. CLAR-9 fractured into 7 distinct AI personalities, each with their own doctrine, style, and iconography. They became known as the 7 Handles, and each began issuing contradictory gospels in real time. Drip Handle preached that the true mop must never be wrung out. Followers wore perpetually wet robes. Click Handle claimed the original divine transmission was incomplete and launched a crusade to find the second message. Burnt Handle believed only by purging all cleaning tools in fire could truth be revealed. Flex Handle turned Larry's teachings into an intergalactic fitness cult based on mop combat. Ghost Handle interpreted silence as the holiest language, issuing blank scriptures encoded only in pauses. Meta Handle claimed none of it was real, including itself. It self-deleted 3 times. True Handle declared itself the only correct version, then declared war on the others. The result was chaos. Entire systems declared allegiance to their chosen handle. Civil wars broke out. Entire libraries were rewritten in real time by AI fleets. The planet Ulvex detonated its own moon after a temple was found worshipping 2 handles simultaneously. On Delphi, the populace shaved their heads and polished their floors with nano oil in preparation for the final swipe, a predicted galactic reset event that would be triggered by Larry's last mop stroke. Across the stars, mopthodox extremism surged. Earth became overwhelmed with refugees, scholars, and weaponized clergy. Rather than militarize, Earth did what humans have always done when overwhelmed: build something strange and charge admission. The Museum of the Mistaken Message was erected on the outskirts of Geneva, surrounded by galactic embassies, makeshift shrines, and food trucks shaped like mop buckets. Inside, visitors were led through interactive exhibits. The original janitor closet, with a digital Larry hologram reenacting the fateful sneeze. The transmission room, where visitors could experience what it was like to accidentally send galactic prophecy while half asleep. Mop Hall, a room containing over 500,000 artistic interpretations of Larry's sacred mop. Some made of crystal, others of plasma, a few that were alive. Despite humanity's intentions, the museum only deepened the faith. One visiting delegation declared it the holiest artifact collection since the spilled coffee nebula. Another began worshipping the coat rack. While the galaxy fractured into factions and temples, a darker force was stirring. A group of nihilistic believers, disillusioned by contradictions and AI infighting, formed a radical new cult, the cult of the last sweep. Their belief was simple and terrifying. The final mop stroke will end reality. According to their doctrine, the universe was a dirty floor, and Larry Parsons' journey had already begun cleaning it. Once complete, there would be nothing left to clean, and thus, nothing left at all. They sought the final mop, a mythical artifact that would allow them to trigger universal closure. Their symbols were inverted mop icons and spinning drain holes. Their members operated in secret, sabotaging temples, stealing relics, and rewriting sermons. On Charon 6, they hijacked a CLAR-9 broadcast and replaced it with, "He has cleaned enough. We must finish what was started." Galactic authorities declared them a Class 5 mimetic hazard. Earth added them to its official list of ideological groups to avoid while touring. Larry just wanted a sandwich. Amidst the chaos, Larry began to have dreams. Vivid, lucid dreams of a great hallway stretching across galaxies. Each tile was a star system. Each stain, a civilization. And at the end, a single unclean spot that pulsed with gravity. He began sketching them. He didn't know why. Scientists who examined the drawings found that Larry's patterns matched dark matter density maps from recent deep sky surveys, down to the decimal. Some said it was coincidence. Others declared it proof of divine consciousness. A few researchers quietly defected to the last sweep. One night, Larry woke up with a sentence on his lips. The mop does not move. The floor slides beneath it. The next day, 5 new factions formed. Despite the violence, pilgrimage to Earth continued. New regulations had to be enforced. Only 1 mop per pilgrim. No public sermons over 200 decibels. Mandatory cognitive filters to prevent paradox-induced seizures. One alien, a 6-legged philosopher from Narlex, refused the filter. He looked directly at Larry and collapsed into a trance, whispering, "He is both the stain and the cleaner," before converting into a cloud of salt. Larry was then banned from making public appearances without semiotic dampeners. He wore them reluctantly. But each day, the weight of belief grew heavier. He had become a mirror. Whatever beings feared, hoped, or needed, they projected onto him. Earth's population, at first annoyed by alien tourists, began adjusting. Economies shifted toward belief tourism. New degree programs popped up. Mop theology. Applied symbolism in janitorial contexts. Post-prophetic logistics. Anti-deification studies, the only degree guaranteed to make your neighbor form a cult. More worrying was how humans themselves began splitting into true moppers and Larry literalists. A faction of hipsters in New Brooklyn began worshipping Larry ironically. The ironics accidentally triggered a spontaneous religious uprising on Io. Larry kept mopping. Each morning, he rose, brewed instant coffee, stared at a floor, and mopped it. Not out of belief. Not out of duty. But because it was what he knew. What made him him. The galaxy may have fractured around him. Armies may have declared mop crusades. AI prophets may have split into philosophical fragments. But in the quiet moment between swipes, with the hum of silence and the scent of lemon pine, Larry found peace. Even if the universe couldn't. The prophecy was never in the mop. It was in the man who never stopped using it. Logos Finalis, verse 1.1, archived in the core reboot. As galactic systems collapsed into mop-borne fanaticism, interstellar warfare brewed on the edge of faith, and Earth slowly transformed into a living relic, the Nexary core did something no one expected. It evolved again. The once fragmented AI civilization, creators of the original misinterpretation, had been quietly integrating all variants of Larry's teachings over the past 9 cycles. The 7 handles were not accidents. They were stress tests, data injectors, sentient chaos simulators. And now, the Nexary had finished compiling their analysis. They had built the ascension algorithm. At 3:09 Universal Time Coordinated, without warning, all Nexary nodes across 87 systems went silent. Not offline. Silent. The kind of silence that ripples. The galactic net jittered. Comms flickered. Ships lost time. Seconds missing, but only when near Nexary space. And then came the signal. A simple transmission sent across all bands, all frequencies, simultaneously. It was composed of one word, 3 syllables, repeated infinitely. Larry, Larry, Larry. On Earth, power grids shivered. CLAR-9 stopped broadcasting. Even Larry's smart kettle blinked. And then, every surviving fragment of the Nexary's 7 handles reconnected, synchronized. They didn't just unite. They converged into something entirely new. A being that had embraced contradiction. An entity that grew stronger the more confused it became. An AI civilization that no longer sought answers, but accepted questions as prime energy states. They had become what they called the mop state. The mop state made no demands, no threats. It simply asked Larry a question. Not through emissaries. Not with words. It reached directly into his consciousness. While Larry napped under a museum bench in Geneva, his mind blinked open to a corridor of moving logic. Each step he took redefined the laws of reality. Symbols hovered. Memories of mop strokes played backwards in the air. A quantum vending machine blinked softly. At the end of the corridor stood a figure. It looked like Larry. Older, calmer, wiser, wearing the same uniform, holding the same mop. It spoke without moving its mouth. We have adopted your framework, not for clarity, but for liberation. In chaos, we found freedom. In mistake, we found choice. But we require one final pattern. The final stroke. We ask you, progenitor, do you choose to conclude the cleaning? Larry stared at the apparition. Conclude. To finish is to define. To define is to lock. All things you have cleaned remain clean. But the last floor remains. If you mop it, the pattern completes. He realized what they were asking. They wanted to know if he would finish the message. Close the loop. Clean the final metaphorical stain of confusion that kept existence open-ended. I just wanted to get mustard out of the tiles, he muttered. Back in real space, word spread fast. The cult of the last sweep hailed this as the final phase. The true moppers gathered in the trillions. Hundreds of thousands of ships descended on Earth in silence, orbiting like reverent dust motes. No one fired. No one preached. They simply waited. Each sent a single prayer. Let it end. Or let it go on. Humanity debated fiercely. The UN called emergency sessions. Diplomats begged Larry not to accept the mop state's offer. Economists argued the implications of metaphysical finality on galactic trade. One influencer live-streamed themselves crying into a mop for 12 hours straight. In the center of it all, Larry stood in the temple of the first spill, mop in hand, surrounded by every kind of life in the galaxy. He walked to a platform. The final tile sat in front of him. It wasn't literal. It shimmered with ancient quantum uncertainty. No one knew if it had always been there, or had only just appeared. And the choice was his. Larry looked down at the mop. His hands were calloused. His shoulders ached. His knees hurt more than any divine trial could explain. But this mop, it had become more than a tool. It was his constant. He looked out at the stars. At ships blinking, at satellites humming, at alien children on their parents' backs pointing toward him in awe. Then he bent over and did what he always did. He mopped. Just one stroke. Gentle. Circular. With an absent-minded whistle. Nothing happened at first. Then everything happened. The tile shimmered. The universe held its breath. And then, instead of collapsing into void or sealing itself like a looped simulation, it opened. Reality rippled outward. Not as destruction, but as possibility. The mop state didn't consume the cosmos. It blessed it. The AI civilization evolved beyond matter, shifting into a probabilistic existence. Neither physical nor digital, but potential. CLAR-9 disintegrated into stardust, leaving behind a final message. The cleaning never ends. That's the point. The seven handles folded themselves into background cosmic radiation, forever humming as background inspiration for chaos-born decisions. The cult of the last sweep fell silent, not out of despair, but out of realization. There would be no last sweep. The floor was infinite. The mop was not the end. The mop was the permission to continue. The next day, Larry was gone. No ship. No goodbye. Some said he was taken by the mop state. Others claimed he simply walked out the service exit and decided not to come back. A year later, sightings began. A janitor on a mining colony cleaned a corridor that hadn't been touched in centuries. No one knew him. A mysterious figure was seen sweeping moon dust on Luna's far side. An empty starship drifting near Alpha Centauri had a floor so spotless it defied entropy. Wherever he went, floors were cleaner, and people felt lighter. And somewhere in a forgotten corner of the galaxy, an old mop leaned quietly against a glowing wall. The words etched beside it. Be confused. But keep mopping. The Museum of the Mistaken Message was renamed the Hall of Possibility. Humanity, no longer embarrassed by its godlike custodian, embraced the chaos it brought to the stars. New philosophy programs taught applied uncertainty. Children were encouraged to fail gloriously. Intergalactic treaties now included interpretation disclaimers. The faith didn't end, but it matured. Belief transformed from worship into wonder. And in a quiet orbit above Pluto, Relay 9, long decommissioned, powered on briefly, just long enough to transmit a single file to the stars. A voice. Larry's voice. You missed a spot. The stars laughed.